Have a few minutes? You won't believe what you can do with it. Open a Regions checking account online in as little as 5 minutes. Then enjoy award-winning service and banking tools and tech that help you live in the moment. Learn more at regions.com/live in the moment. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
Live from the Subaru of Gwinnett Studio, inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel, it's time for Regions Business Radio. Regions Business Radio is presented by Regions Bank. Brave the beginning. Member FDIC. Now, here's your host, J.D. Mealer.
Thank you, Mike Salmon. Good to be with you today. As he said, my name is J.D. Mealer, and you are listening to Regions Business Radio. Regions Business Radio is growing rapidly, and we appreciate you listening to us, and we're very excited about all that we're doing to help educate our business community in Northeast Georgia and really around our region's footprint. For many of you that may not be aware, we are not only officially the bank of the SEC, but our footprint is around the SEC. And what we found is that our podcast is being listened to around the entire footprint. And we have a variety of episodes that you could find on your preferred podcast app. Just look up Regions Business Radio. Not sure how you found us today, but we have some really good content in the previous weeks and months. So if you like what you hear today, please go back and listen to it. And our hope is that you listen to this podcast and you are able to understand and learn something about your business through the eyes of Regions Bank and what we can do to help you along the way. I typically start our time together with a little bit of a market update. Very interesting times that we're living in. As we record this, it's February of 2023, and interest rates are starting to maybe, at least short-term interest rates as measured by Fed funds are beginning to sort of maybe plateau, maybe a couple more interest rate increases over the next 10 months. Interestingly enough, your opportunity to borrow money for mortgages has decreased a little bit over the last 6 months, which is good for the housing market. In the meantime, if you haven't noticed as a commercial entity, if you haven't noticed that your opportunity to earn interest on your deposits has returned with force, and we have a really good product, selfless plug there, but at Regions we have a really good sweet product right now that's out there. If you have operating cash on the sidelines, call your Regions banker and let's talk about that. So rates, borrowing rates are up and plateauing. Savings rates are where they haven't been in a while. Certainly no opinion or no topic on the markets because I'm not licensed to do so. But with that said, that's a little bit of a market update. And we're excited today to have an episode on international banking, and I have a couple of my buddies with me today that you're gonna you may learn something new, but you are also going to understand strategically why Regions Bank is going to we're going to do a full court press in the Atlanta area on international companies. We have a suite of products, and we have a team built that is unparalleled in this marketplace with a view towards helping international companies, either domestic-owned or domestic companies with foreign-owned parents. But we'll get into all that. I don't want to steal everybody's thunder. This is a really good episode today. We hope that you learned something new. And let me begin. I'm going to introduce my two guests. One of them you've met before. I'm going to introduce him in first, and that's Thomas Matthias. Thomas with Regions Global Trade Finance. Thanks for being with me again. Appreciate you being here.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we're happy. Always happy to have you and your energy on the podcast. So you may recognize that voice from a couple years back. Thomas and I we did a podcast episode during COVID, so it's been a little while. So good to have you back.
Good to be back.
And then a new friend of mine that joined Regions in the last several months is Christian Lewis. Christian.
Hey, thanks very much to have me, JD, and I appreciate everybody listening today.
Yeah, welcome to Regions Business Radio. So happy to have you here. You joined us to kick off an initiative at the bank called International Subsidiaries Banking, ISB. I mean, we got to give it an acronym, right? ISB.
That's right.
What in the world? is ISB?
Well, we were going back and forth on what to call ourselves, but really, it's our clients, prospects are multinational companies, and the U.S. is one of their operations, but they have a foreign parent company outside the U.S.
Okay.
And so that's what we call international subsidiary banking, is looking at the subsidiaries in the U.S., and these are international companies.
Why do we need someone special to bring knowledge in that scenario?
Okay, so really, the international subsidiary banking, the multinational corporations, they have a different exposure than typical American companies.
Okay.
In that, different profile can have strengths as well as weaknesses. And so my primary job is to try and look at these companies and explain to regions if the multinational corporation provides an opportunity or if it provides a risk.
Okay.
And so ultimately, it's about our shareholders and bringing value, making sure we measure the company the right way.
Gotcha. So in that regard, we know a little bit about, let's just say, a manufacturing company in Sewanee, and we know that they have a foreign parent, let's just say in Italy. Do you do a credit profile on the parent? Is that part of what you do?
That's right. So we're going to get to know the customer not only here in the U.S. but also in Italy and around the world. We'll look at their credit profile because typically, if the parent company is very strong and the U.S. company is growing, may have some temporary weakness, the parent company can step in and help them. At the same time, if the parent company is having problems, then that can impact the U.S. company because the U.S. company will typically have the same type of product.
Okay.
The parent company may be a supplier, so that could be problems with supply chain. And, the reputation amongst the buyers could travel nationally or globally. So typically we find if the companies are strong enough to expand into the U.S., they have a good profile, and so it's generally a benefit. But there may be a time when, we see problems overseas before we see them in the U.S.
Interesting. So, silly question. Why does that matter to somebody that may be listening today?
Yeah. So I think that kind of put it on a different tack. When you think about a typical company in the United States growing, the growth rates in the U.S. are generally a lot smaller than they are for a foreign company coming in. Because a foreign company that comes in is doing business with a lot of other multinational corporations.
Okay.
So they've already got prospects that they know globally. They've got, so they can go right in and establish relationships. They can sell faster. And they've already done this before in terms of setting up operations. So if you're listening, you're thinking, well, I don't want to work for a foreign company. They really have a lot faster growth trajectory. And there's a stigma around these foreign companies that, it's a foreign name. And so they typically have to offer better profiles, either in terms of pay or in terms of benefits. So it's a real opportunity for, if you're listening, to say, hey, a foreign company actually has, they're overcoming something, so they're offering you more. And they're going to grow a lot faster, so there may be a lot more opportunity for you with a growing company.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. That is, what do you think the market opportunity is? Let's say sort of Atlanta, Gwinnett. If you think about international subsidiaries that reside in our market area, like 10 or 20 companies or a couple thousand?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. In Region's footprint, which is the SEC land and, outside, we include Texas now. It's funny to think of them as the SEC, but they are. So there's over 10,000, close to 15,000 foreign corporations in this footprint. And for a long time, Regions has just kind of like banked them like every other bank and like a U.S. company. And so we realized that we're missing out on the real strength of the relationship, which is global business. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of companies.
Yeah, I think that, and you bring up an interesting point. Yeah, we're the official bank of the SEC. We have a nice footprint. The majority of business growth and influx of new residents is occurring in our footprint, right?
Yep.
So the opportunity for new business is strong. I'm not so sure that people would think of Regions and international banking. So I want you to give an answer to that first, Christian, and then Thomas is so the point that I want to make is Regions has a strength for international companies in what way?
Really in the way we're trying to approach the market. First of all, you're right. Regions Bank doesn't sound international. It sounds like a regional bank. And so, that's what it is. But we're trying to, given the companies that are in our footprint, we're trying to go after them. And we're trying to say, okay, what do we do differently than the typical U.S. bank in the Southeast? And so my group is part of that, and Thomas Mathias provides the other part, but both really critical. But my group goes ahead and we say, we're going to treat the company differently. So if a company is new and young and starting up in the U.S. and they need some financing, we'll be able to look at them a little bit differently than every other U.S. bank.
Okay.
And so some of it's very basic like that. The other stuff is very basic is we're going to look at the executives differently too. So typically a foreign company will come into the U.S. and they'll want to have somebody sit on top of the money. And so the CFO will be from that home country. They'll bring it from somebody from overseas. And so we'll offer personal products for those expat executives, whether it be housing products or credit cards, just something to make their life a little bit more easier because they're banking with Regions.
And I've seen that work before.
Really?
At a previous bank, and it worked really well. That the previous bank I'm mentioning there's no longer a logo for it. So, but it works really well.
Yeah.
So Thomas, when you think about Regions equals international banking, what does that mean from your perspective and your area of expertise?
I'm excited to talk about this because, Regions Bank is indeed one of the premier global trade banks in the country and around the world for that matter. In a time where a lot of banks of similar size are pulling back on global trade, we're actually leaning into it. And that's because Regions Bank is a bank of the customer. We follow our customers wherever they are going. And right now, our customers are going overseas, and they're engaging overseas. So it's always important to remember that almost 95% of the world's consumers are outside the U.S. And then 70% of the business world is also outside the U.S. So we are actively engaging. So Regions Bank is proud to say that we have all of the global trade services of any of the big banks, whether it's trade services, whether you need to do letters of credit or documented collections, we need to do supply chain financing, or if you need to do buyer financing that we do right now through Exim Bank. We have a full suite of global trade capabilities that will rival any of the top 5 banks in the world.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, you say that because you're sitting here in a Regions golf shirt, our beautiful green.
That's right.
You get a paycheck from Regions. You're supposed to say that. Do we have any accolades outside of our own that tell the world that we're good at this?
Absolutely. For the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've been the SBA's export working capital leading bank in the country. We've also gotten similar awards from the U.S. Export-Import Bank. I right now serve as an advisory role on the U.S. Exim Bank for their China Competitiveness Initiative. So we are actively engaged with our governments and their programs. We both serve in the Georgia DEC. So Regions Bank is all over the geography with global trade activities and organizations, and we are leading the way with this effort. We really believe in global trade. We really believe in serving our customers because we're meeting them where they're at. Mm-hmm. And our customers in this geography of our 16-state and also our national footprint are actively engaged globally.
You said a couple things, some products and services that I'd like to dig into for a moment. Supply chain financing.
Absolutely.
What does that mean? What does it look like?
Oh, man. Supply chain financing is where we are able to provide cash relief to our customers. Okay. Everybody who's buying or selling abroad knows it takes forever to get products to and from.
Yeah.
Because you're going across the oceans, you're going across countries and continents. It's not like going from Texas to Florida. It's going overseas. So nobody wants to part with their cash before product is even in their country. Mm-hmm. So we are providing ways in which we can pay your foreign suppliers at the point they ship on your behalf, and then you pay us back 3 to 4 months down the line when you've already received products and probably even manufacture what you want to manufacture and sold it to your customer, helping you save your cash.
So that sounds pretty advanced.
It's pretty simple, actually, because it's something that we are now offering to not only our investment grade companies, but also us SMEs as well. So we found a way to not only provide this to the large companies, but we're trying to find a way to provide it to the smaller medium enterprises as well.
Okay.
That need it even more than the big guys.
I would think that would work well in our market here in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
So another thing that you mentioned was SBA export-import financing.
Yes.
Tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, so basically the SBA is a government agency that provides structuring tools for lenders like ourselves that allow us to take more risk and provide more nuances in a line of credit to help our companies that are exporting have more support in their efforts overseas to allow them to be more competitive. So when they are able to sell overseas, they can offer that foreign buyer longer repayment terms as well. That allows them to help them win that deal. A lot of U.S. banks don't like to do that. So we're able to do it through SBA and Exim Bank. So it gives us more support and more aggressive structuring tools to allow our small companies to achieve bigger sales goals overseas.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Hey, and Thomas, can I jump in for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
One of the favorite things I like to do as a banker is talk to companies about how they can increase their sales. Do we have anything that can help companies increase their international sales?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned before, when you're offering longer repayment terms, companies are going to buy from you because they have the ability to buy your product, bring it in the country, sell it before even paying you back. That's a tremendous competitive advantage when you're able to buy, a piece of pen, receive it in your country, put it on your sales retail floor, sell it, get paid for it, then pay for it. That's an amazing concept.
And that's supply chain finance.
That's supply chain financing.
And can we give loans to the buyers so that they can buy more of your products?
Absolutely. One of the latest and greatest things we're doing right now is that we're providing large and corporate clients the ability to provide financing to their foreign buyers. So where in which you're a large OEM and you're selling a bunch of equipment, CapEx equipment that's maybe a large dollar volume and is going to last the company maybe 5, 10, 20 years, that company doesn't want to pay that large dollar amount today. We're saying we will underwrite that foreign buyer for you and give that foreign buyer a Regions Bank 5 or 10 year loan, which allows you to better compete against other suppliers and win that deal. And we allow you to gain a new customer overseas.
So we would make a loan to a foreign entity.
A foreign entity in Mexico and Brazil and Canada, wherever.
In order to help one of our domestic company clients
export
that product.
Exactly.
And does every bank do that?
No. that is a thing. A lot of banks used to do this business, and they walked away from it for different reasons. And now, as part of me advising with the Exim Bank, they're trying to re-engage banks to start doing this again because we're really trying to ramp up our competitiveness against China, of course, but also other countries in which we're really falling behind in the trade war. So as far as us doing this, it's not only good for our customers, but it's also good for our country because it allows us to provide more competitiveness to our exporters in winning deals against foreign companies, mainly China, who's right now going to be supplying the whole world if we don't do something about it.
Yeah.
So this allows us to win both battles.
that jives with my experience because I worked at a bank where they had a presence in over 20 countries. And they wouldn't do these foreign buyer loans. And I worked with a bank that had customers in over 50 countries, and they wouldn't do these foreign buyer loans. So that's pretty impressive.
I'm kind of speechless. Number one, because Christian Lewis has just taken over as the host of Regions Business Radio today, and he's done an excellent job so far. And secondly, is this sounds like something that we need more people to know about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's sort of our job, right? I mean, we hope that someone listening to this could share it with somebody else that it may impact in our bankers. So, the way that we're built is our commercial bankers and our corporate bankers in the market initiate relationships domestic and with domestic commercial companies, corporate companies, and then the RMs begin a relationship that leads to a conversation with a Thomas or a Christian. When you think of, go ahead.
It even gets better, JD. It even gets better, JD. We're not just one of two. We're actually one of three. Our other partner, Michael Zellison, is in our FX division, and he does currency exchange. So in a situation in which you're buying or selling to a foreign country that's dealing with currency fluctuations, we can provide you hedging solutions for that sale as well. We're not just ISB and global trade. We're also foreign exchange to help in that situation as well.
Well, let's without mentioning names, Christian and I can sort of debrief a meeting that we had yesterday to give you a real peek into this. So we met with a manufacturer that is foreign owned, and at the table we had Christian talking about our understanding, our willingness to understand the parent. We had Zellickson, who's been on Gwinnett Business Radio before, talking. He had an entire deck that discussed hedging strategies. Are you going to purchase in euros or U.S. dollars? Mm-hmm. And people that someone listening may not really care about that.
Right.
You know, well, we buy in U.S. dollars, we sell in U.S. dollars. What does it mean to buy or sell in euros?
Yeah.
So somebody listening, what would we do to educate? I mean, Zellickson would be our guy, but in general, what does that mean?
It's funny because I remember I was talking to a company that was in Georgia, and they bought all their stuff, made it here, and they sold everything in dollars. So they had all their payments in dollars and all their receivables in dollars, and they said, I have no foreign currency exposure. You know, why do I care? And so they noticed that the previous year their dollar sales had declined. And so they started digging into it, and they're like, why is our sales going down? And they found out that the euro-dollar exchange rate had changed so much that they went and they said, well, who was our biggest buyer that left us? And they found out it was a German company that was actually one of their competitors. And the euro was so strong that they were buying products from the U.S. company and just rebranding it and selling the U.S. product in Europe. You know, it was cheaper for them to buy the U.S. company's product than it was for them to manufacture. And so you would think, oh, I'm just sitting here in the U.S. doing my thing. But, you know, there's all sorts of stuff going on out there. What's your competition doing? If your competition is selling in euros and you're selling in dollars, that could be a big factor.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And our guy Zellickson helps us with that. You know, so to someone that may be listening, if you manufacture domestically and sell internationally, we want to talk to you.
Absolutely.
If you import goods, am I right, Thomas?
We want to talk to you too.
Why is that?
Because we can help you with your payables. We can help you with your sales. We can help you mitigating any repayment risk. We can help you provide your suppliers terms that allows them to get paid early and terms that allow you to pay back in 60, 90 days, which helps your cash flow. So right now, you want to consider Regions Bank the cash flow bank. You know, we're here to help and manage your cash flow. Cash is always going to be king, and we are focusing in 2023 on providing our customers more cash.
Yeah.
And our solutions are all tailored around that.
We like customers with cash that can deposit it in our bank.
Exactly.
You know? You had a point, Chris?
Yeah, just the other thing on the importing, everybody typically prices in dollars. And they'll say, okay, I'll buy 10X for, $10. And so sometimes it's beneficial to talk to the seller in the foreign country and saying, hey, can I buy this in your currency? I'll pay you in your currency. And that's a benefit for the exporter there because then they don't have to worry about FX rates. They're going to get their local currency instead of in dollars. And so once you get a quote in the U.S. dollars and you compare it to a quote in the foreign currency, you call Michael and Michael say, you better take the foreign currency because that's a better deal. Or you better take the dollars because that's a better deal. And he can help you manage the exchange rate risk.
Yeah, just think about what happened in the last year with our favorite neighbors, Canada and Mexico, where their currency, in my lifetime, Canadian dollar, has been weaker than the dollars. So if you were selling to a Canadian company at the time when our dollar was weaker, everything was fine. But at the time when the currency fluctuated and their dollars became weaker, our products became even that much more expensive. So therefore, you're looking at the risk of losing sales because your products are more expensive. If you go to Michael and you say, well, let's do a hedge, then you can sell to that Canadian buyer in Canadian dollars. And we can lock in the rates so that you don't lose any of your margins and he maintains the price 3, 4, 6 months earlier. And that's where it becomes a win-win. So the ultimate goal of all trade is to have a win-win scenario between the buyer and seller always. And whether it's working with Christian or working with me or working with Mike, our goal is to make that happen.
Yeah. My mind's just racing because y'all talk about it so easily. And a lot of times, my bankers have called on domestic companies. They just sell to somebody, around the corner.
Right.
Now we're talking about selling or purchasing literally around the world.
Yes.
You mentioned LCs.
Yep.
Why do LCs matter? I mean, What is that all about?
In the world of the internet, and everybody being able to do a Skype call and meet your buyers and sellers overseas, LCs are declining, but LCs is still the number one way of mitigating repayment risk, because it's where a bank gets involved and is acting as the credit risk for the buyer and sellers. So the banks are getting involved and are guaranteeing payment to the seller and guaranteeing delivery of products to the buyers. So it's a great product for when you're discovering and exploring a new market and you really don't know that customer very well, or you don't know that supplier very well. It's always good to start with an LC.
Okay.
Now, 2, 3, 4 years from now, when you've already met the guy and gone to his daughter's wedding, you can then graduate into open accounts or some other method.
Yep.
But initially, when you're meeting a foreign buyer, meeting a foreign seller, you may want to initiate a letter of credit, because then it's a bank-to-bank transaction, and the banks are taking all the risk.
Yep.
So you have no repayment risk, or have no payment risk in that scenario.
So depending on size, Christian, would you get involved and maybe help a customer evaluate one of their new customers?
I mean, definitely that's on the spectrum. As we look at the international side, it's a foreign corporation, in the U.S. corporation, we're talking to them all the time. And I'm thinking about how to help them grow sales, because that's one of the better discussions for a banker to have, really, with a CFO, is to say, hey, how can we grow your sales?
Yeah. I mean, I think so many, and I'm going way back here to the early days of Regions Business Radio. I used to almost pound the table and make the point that business is not always about the cheapest rate and the cheapest fee when you're considering a banker.
No.
You've got to, you sort of get what you pay for, right? And a sophisticated bank with a niche set of products and services should serve you extremely well. What I'm hearing you say is, especially, Christian, when you talk about we want to help a client increase their sales, that is an entirely different topic than many of the decision trees that exist in companies that are listening, because it's, we're going to bring in 3 banks, and, one bank may have a product that offers greater FDIC coverage, and one bank may have a cheaper rate on their loans. If that's the only decision matrix that somebody makes, how does our story compare when you think about our strengths that you guys bring?
I think it speaks to the heart of what Regis is saying, is that we want relationships. We don't want to do single transactions with customers. We want to build a relationship with the company and understand what they're doing. And I think that's why having a local relationship manager, a local credit partner, local customer service is so important. Generally, if you're dialing 1-800 to look for help from your bank, that's not as good a sign as calling somebody you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. All right. Just general banking for a second. Let's go here. Every bank in this nation wants to talk about relationship. In my mind, a relationship is built through the good times and the bad times. If we are looking to initiate a new relationship with a company that has some sort of global exposure, and we want them to consider us as a relationship bank, what are some questions you think they would ask of us? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And I think that most people kind of miss it. They kind of think, as long as every bank is the same,
Okay.
Having a credit partner here or a credit partner in Texas doesn't make a difference. But it really does, because if the credit people are like everybody else, they want to know something, and we get to see it, feel it, touch it, and then they feel a little bit more comfortable with things. And so having your local decision makers in your market, which is the Regis model, I think is stronger for our customers. Now, it is more expensive, because we have to have people in every market, but the benefit is to the customers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think the difference between Regions Bank and other banks is we lead with that word C. And when you think about C, everybody thinks about credit. But in Regions Bank, we lead with capabilities. And I think our RMs are been fantastic at bringing the entire bank to a customer. They're going to bring Christian, they're going to bring myself, they're going to bring the treasury folks. They're going to bring everybody to the table to provide this new customer a good overall look at all of our capabilities. And let the client decide which one of those capabilities they want to pursue first.
Y'all make a point that that's been made on the podcast before. Regions Commercial and Corporate Banking, we want to bring the best of local relationship management with industry expertise.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about today. Somebody that, well, let's go back to our scenario of yesterday. We were in a situation, again, just Thomas, it was a manufacturer.
Yeah.
And they shared with us, not speaking names, of course, but they shared with us that their current bank didn't proactively reach out to them. The customer was sort of bemoaning the fact that they had to bring ideas to their bank and not the other way around. If you want a bank that is going to provide you with that local RM, literally a local credit officer, and industry expertise, all in one meeting, quarterly, talking about how to, as Christian said, grow your sales.
Yep.
As Thomas helps limit risk exposure internationally.
Absolutely.
All the while having local credit decisions and an RM that can quarterback all those things. That is a very unique offering in this environment. Okay. That's our commercial. I want to say a comment, and I want to see how this sits with you, especially in light of your banking expertise. What does nearshoring mean? Does that term?
Yeah. So, coming out of the pandemic, companies realized that they could not be dependent on foreign suppliers for everything. They could not be dependent on one or two suppliers overseas for everything. And that was the case a lot of Americans, manufacturing companies were in. That all their suppliers coming from China or Vietnam or somewhere overseas. So right now the consideration is, how do we bring some of that manufacturing capacity, some of that raw material production over back into the U.S.?
Okay.
And there's a lot of programs being floated around. I can actually make a commercial for one. It's called the Make More in America Initiative. It's headed up by the new administration via the U.S. Export-Import Bank. And it's a way in which our government is providing very attractive term loans to help to help all companies develop their manufacturing capacity here in the U.S., bringing the manufacturing back into the U.S. through our government support. We've seen it with the CHIPS Act, and that's part of it, where we're trying to give support to companies to bring that raw material capacity back to the U.S.
Okay.
So whether it's going to be onshoring here in the U.S., actually, or somewhere in the Caribbean where it's nearshoring. So you have onshoring here in the U.S.,
Okay.
and you have nearshoring, which will be somewhere in the Western Hemisphere. That is what's being considered right now.
Okay.
And
do we help them with that? Is that like a
we ask-
government guarantee?
That is a government program. It's called Make More in America Initiative. You can Google it. It's on the Exim Bank program's website.
Is it our balance sheet that's being?
Absolutely. It's Regions Bank balance sheet providing the funding with Exim Bank guarantee, of course.
Yeah.
So we are
Okay.
willing to take this additional risk
Yep.
and structure these term loans to help you develop your manufacturing capacity here in the U.S.
Okay. All
So
right.
we're doing that right now. We'd love to talk to you about how you can bring that capacity back to the U.S., and we are willing to help you do that.
Wow, that sounds big.
Yeah. So, and the thing about it, for those of us who are looking to onshore, nearshore, or even just diversify your supplier base or your customer base, Regions Bank can help you with that. Because what's happening is that even though you may not want to, bring it back to the U.S., but you still want to leave China or you still want to leave Vietnam, now you're going to India. Now you're going to Egypt. We're helping you cultivate those relationships and provide payment methods and
Okay.
tools to help you attract new suppliers and provide them tools to get them paid early
Yep.
and give you terms on the back end while you develop relationships.
Gotcha.
So we are helping you with any of your strategies, whether you want to stay abroad and just diversify further in other regions or bring it back to the U.S. or the Western Hemisphere. We can help you with any strategy that you want to put in place.
Okay.
And we're here as advisors to also, that's the thing about Regions Bank. We are your partner. So we really want to sit down with you and provide advisory services long before we talk about generating revenues for our company. We want to be your partner and your friend and your advisor and provide you good advice to help you grow your business.
Christian, not sure how to ask this, but do we focus on particular countries?
And the foreign companies?
Yeah.
I think naturally you kind of we as a bank, we want to make sure we do things safely. And so we're looking at the countries that are safe. And so the way I like to think about it is, it may not be, the best way of saying it or the most politically correct way, is that, if your child was going overseas and you knew your child was going to be arrested, what country would you want your child to be arrested in? And so if you want you think, well, would you rather pick, Western Europe or something Stan? And you probably say, well, I'll go with Western Europe. And so we do the same thing with our customer selection. And we're trying to help everybody, but we're more comfortable with countries that have more stable and less risk.
Okay.
We have capabilities in all, and we will provide you the necessary advice. So we will never tell you what to do. We will just tell you the pros and cons and the risk.
Sort of our risk assessment.
Exactly.
Of each geography, if you will, or specific countries.
To Christian's point, if you have to still go to the stand, we'll tell you the best ways to conduct business in that country.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this. I mean, this is really fascinating. If you had, I'm not going to do the old, hey, give me your elevator pitch, but if we had one chance, if someone was listening to this podcast and we had one chance to ask them for a meeting and why they should take it. Now, they could listen to the whole podcast. We've covered a lot of information in a short, 36 minutes. But if somebody were asking, why should I take a meeting with Regions to talk about international banking, we had just a short blip to say it. Christian, why should somebody agree to meet with us?
Well, from my perspective, right, I'd be focusing on multinational corporations. And I would say that when you met with Regions Bank in the U.S., we would look at you the same way as your local bank in your local country. And so whether it's Malaysia or Thailand or, Germany, we're going to go ahead and we're going to treat you the same way as a German bank or a Thai bank or a Malaysian bank would treat you. So you don't suffer by being multinational at all. You don't lose any of your real characteristics and strengths.
Okay, interesting. Same question to you, Thomas.
JD, as you know, Regions Bank is a super regional bank, but we have world-class global trade capabilities and is led by our superior customer service. Yeah.
You know what? That's a great way to bring this in for a landing. Let me just ask you: do you have any? I know, Christian, you got some notes over there. I'd be remiss if I brought it in for a landing without asking you if there were anything that you would like to share that I overlooked or didn't lead us to today.
Yeah, I think that from the multinational corporation perspective, the big thing is that we can help your U.S. company get better loans than you would normally get. By seeking out the parent involvement. If the parent's willing to stand up behind that company and say, we'll back them, we'll guarantee them, then we're able to offer better products and solutions to the U.S. company. So that's probably the big thing.
Can I ask a question there?
Sure.
And I'm sorry to intrude on your line of thought. Sometimes the question comes up about foreign parent guarantees. And are they enforceable or do they matter? Is that sort of what you're talking about?
That's right. And so within the United States, the guarantees are very common. We'll take a guarantee from a company in Kansas, we'll guarantee a company in Georgia.
Yes.
And that's a very common, everybody accepts it. All we're doing now is we're taking that same principle and saying, well, if you can take a guarantee from Kansas, can you take a guarantee from Ireland, from Germany? And so we do the same thing that those lawyers do, is we have lawyers that'll look at the laws in Ireland, in Germany, and they'll say, okay, will they accept the decision of the U.S. courts? And they'll say, is there precedent here? Has it been honored? And that we'll do that same research, and we'll say, okay, based upon the research, we can take this.
I think that's a differentiator.
Yeah, it is, because if you think about it, everybody's been saying, oh, the world's a smaller place, we can do more things internationally, and the law is catching up.
Yeah.
And so now
finally
we're recognizing, hey, you know what? We can make phone calls everywhere now. Why not do business everywhere?
It's also important to note that as much as we are able to take a parent company guarantee today, and for years, we still take bank guarantees. So Regions Bank has communication SWIFT RMA in place with over 2,000 banks all around the world that we actually do business with, send LCs, correspond with, send messages with. We can also accept a standby LC from a foreign bank in support of their parent company's local subsidiary if they wanted to seek some financing. So we do that right now, today, every day, all day, because we already have a familiarity with those foreign banks around the world.
Yeah. Did you have another thought that
No, I think I'm good. I think the other thing I would say is it doesn't come up very often, but sometimes a foreign CFO will demand something of the local CFO that is just not market practice in the U.S. And so I've frequently been asked by a company CFO here, hey, let's get on a conference call with my boss. You tell him how banking is in the U.S. And I just try and educate the group on how banking practices are in the U.S. And he may want something and he's not expressing it particularly well, or she may think of a solution. And so I try and say, well, here are the alternatives we have in the U.S. market to fix that problem that they're having.
Okay. Oh, that's very good. Yeah, that's very communicating relationship.
Yeah.
Here we are back to relationship.
Yeah, we don't have to stay in the U.S. We can bank you here, and then we can talk about you globally too.
Yeah, Thomas. Anything we missed on your end that we should cover?
No, I would just say that Regions Bank's flexibility is what really diversifies us from other banks.
Yeah.
We are not a commodity bank. We are comfortable tailor-making solutions to our customers based on their specific needs. We do that all the time in global trade. So, we do sell all the products, but we are able to tweak and amend and make changes as needed to meet your specific needs and help you win business overseas and help you feel secure with banking with us.
Yeah, for sure. Again, not divulging any confidences, late last year, our team did a really good job of helping an international joint venture start a new manufacturing facility.
Absolutely.
This was one where a raw material was being shipped from Europe, and the domestic company partnered with their foreign supplier to do a joint venture to build a facility that no longer required the shipment of the raw material from Europe. They were able to make the raw material in Northeast Georgia, and what used to be a multi-week trip on a ship is now basically a 100-yard trip on a piece of PVC pipe or whatever type of pipe they put in there. And we helped them through that. We had to negotiate some foreign guarantees. We had to understand foreign corporate structure. And in this scenario, within the business community that we're talking about, I think we created 20 or 30 jobs that got a lot of attention. And that's an example of it's not an example of trade payables. It's not an example of XM or but it is an example, a real live example. I could put anyone in my truck and we could drive to this facility and I could show them what we've done for an international joint venture to help them streamline their process, make it cheaper, make it quicker. And now the domestic company is able to open up more markets than they had before because they're more nimble with a greater access to the raw material that is the primary material in what they manufacture. Yeah. So y'all were talking about it, and I was thinking, man, we have an example of that. And let's wrap up the show with a success story of doing some of this and the fact that we're actively doing it already. Christian's got an idea.
Well, just not only was it a success story, JD, but you don't know this, but you'll like to hear it, is that your success is being copied because the exact same thing is happening in another state west of here, and we're looking at the same thing. We've done this before, and so, people are copying you.
Yeah, well, hey, we would like to do it again here. If you're listening and you have some relationship internationally, whether it's a parent, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a supplier, whether it's a customer, if you would give us the opportunity to meet with you, we will put an all-star team in your boardroom. We will understand your business. We will listen to you, which I think is we talked about relationship before, and I mentioned that every bank likes to talk about relationship. Our team will endeavor to do this. We will commit to listening, not to respond, but to understand.
Absolutely.
And in doing so, at the appropriate time, we will make recommendations that we think will make you better.
There you go.
But we're not coming in saying, "Hey, let's sell you something." We believe that a relationship is strengthened and it's built on a strong foundation if we, Regions Bank, come into your building and we listen more than we talk. We've done a lot of talking today. That's what this is for. Why? Because you are busy. You're running your company. You're navigating international business. So do you really want to take time for us to come into your boardroom and share that with you? No, you have clients to take care of, customers to support. You have employees to love on. Listen to this podcast to understand who we are and how we do it. And we're asking you for a meeting so that we can bring this live to your boardroom and we can understand how we can help. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what banking is, making friends and solving problems. And that's what we want to help you do. Christian's got another thought.
I was going to say that's very powerful, JD. That's exactly right. And, if you were wondering again about, why you should be talking to Regions, just remember minute 36, you can go in there, rewind your minute for 36 and say, what was that they said? And that's the best.
It is. It is.
Awesome.
Well, guys, thank you for being here. I hope
Thank you.
I hope that we get some success stories out of this. If we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. Our information is available on whatever podcast platform you listen to. And again, for Regions Business Radio, my name is J.D. Mealer. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, JD.
Thank you, JD. Thank you, everybody.
Regions Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. Regions believes this information to be accurate when recorded, but it cannot ensure that it will remain up to date. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation. The information should not be construed as a recommendation of a specific course of action for any individual or business. All Regions products and services are subject to qualification requirements, terms, conditions, fees, and credit approval.